everyone, Neve here, and today I'm doing another tarot tag, and again it's one that I'm severely late on, but this one is the 7 decks for deadly sins, and that was started by Sylvain. And I have the list of the um, oh gosh, I don't know the words. The things. The deadly sins. Okay, so anyway, so this was fun to do. It was we are going to see some repeat decks here, but I tried to pick some that I haven't talked about in previous videos. But anyway, so let's start off with Pride, and this is a deck you purchased for flexing, and I chose this is the bag that I made for it. Just gonna double check that I'm in frame. Yep. All right. And I should probably just stand up so I'm next to the camera. All right. So this is well, let me open it up. It's got the cool mushroom fabric. This is the Seed and Sickle Oracle, and it's actually the only oracle I have in this tag. And I chose this deck. Yes, it is there's a mass-produced. You can get it on the mass market. However, I chose this deck because this is actually the independent version. Whoops! And there were a limited amount of these. I really wish this deck, like these. I don't know that I like this system. The box here with the pull-out thing, there's just too many components to it, you know. I really like the ones that just open this way, if that makes sense. But anyway, and I also, one of the things that I didn't really care about that everyone else loves with this deck is the two guidebook system. I just wish it was one book. You know, the two different books are just, it's a little annoying to me. But that said, I actually really like this deck. And since this is the independent version, it's got the awesome like coppery gilding, which I really like. And this is a very beautiful deck. I got this, and this was the inspiration card for the inside fabric that I got here. So I don't know if you can see inside, but this was the inspiration card for that. So I got this deck actually to specifically be used as a companion for the Pacific Northwest Tarot. And I splurged and got the expensive limited edition independent version. And that is, you know, my flex, that I actually spent the money on the independent version instead of getting the mass market edition, which I was thinking about doing. And I did actually go with the mass market version for the Cosmic Slumber Tarot. Yeah, because it's by the same people, by Liminal 11. I got the mass market version of that, but I got the special edition version for this one. So this is my flex deck, because while yes, it is available mass market, I got the version that is limited edition, so that's my flex. All right, very lovely deck. Quite like it. It's definitely a deck that I'm gonna have to like do a deep dive study with, because I really want to understand each card, both the dawn and dusk meaning. And yeah, so I'm gonna set this out of the way. All right, so the next one is Greed, a deck you don't share with anyone. So I chose a deck that I've shared on this on my channel before, and here it is. So I chose this deck because this is the Crow Tarot by MJ Cullinane. And this is a deck that I only use for communicating with the Morrigan. I have specifically dedicated this deck to her. So I only use, I love this card. I only use this deck when communicating with the Morrigan. So I don't use this deck when clients want a reading or friends and family. I really just use this deck for me and for the Morrigan. So, yeah, and I really, really like this deck. It took me a while to really bond with it, though. Because before I got it, and I've mentioned this before I got it, I knew I wanted to use it for the Morrigan, and I knew I wanted to dedicate it to her, and I did, like, basically as soon as I got it in, I dedicated this deck to the Morrigan, and, yeah, but once I started going through it, I kind of second guessed my decision, and I was like, maybe I shouldn't have dedicated this to the Morrigan because I don't know that I'm connecting to the imagery or whatever. But I ended up going through a deep dive with this deck and really knuckling down and doing. I think this is my favorite card in this deck. I really like this one. I just knuckling down and bonding with the deck, and now I do feel that I am sufficiently bonded to this deck, and it does very much feel like a Morrigan deck for me. And yeah, so it took a while, but it did kind of teach me to kind of, like, if I have an idea in my head of what I want a deck to be used for, I have to be open to the possibility that once I have it in hand, I may have a different feeling, and to kind of give it some time before I fully dedicate it to a particular purpose. But yeah, so this is my greed deck, and it's greed because I only use it for myself and the Morrigan. I don't use it with clients, and there we go. All right, so the next category is Wrath, a deck you're angry at. And, okay, so I have two decks here. I'll go through the first one because the first one, I'm not so much angry at it. All right, and here it is. This is the bag for it, and it matches the deck that I'm going to be showcasing later. So that's because these actually go together. So spoiler alert for a later deck that I'm going to be covering in this tag. And if you've seen any of my other videos, then you know exactly what deck that is. But this deck is the companion deck to that, and that's why the bags match. And this is the Book of Shadows, so As Above deck. And, okay, so here's the thing. I'm not so much mad at this deck as I am feeling that it doesn't fit my practice anymore. And it's such a shame, and I wish it did, because there's just one thing that I would change with this deck, and if I changed that one thing, I think it could actually work for me. But this is the As Above deck, and I actually really like a lot of the imagery. It's very spacey or astrological, cosmic, and I do actually very much like that. But, and here's one of the examples of this. The suits, what's supposed to be the page are elementals, which is fine. I don't really work with elemental energy, but that's fine. But the knights are maidens, the queens are mothers, and the kings are crones. So it is maiden, mother, crone. And if you've watched any of my previous videos, my practice has really moved beyond maiden, mother, crone, and I actually have a lot of issues with it. I'm not saying that people shouldn't have that as part of their practice. It's not something that's part of my practice anymore, and hasn't been for a long time. I do still very much connect with the triple moon energy, because I see it in a cosmic sense. I see it representing the moon, basically, the phases of the moon. And because of that, I do very much connect with the triple moon symbol. It's just the maiden, mother, crone specifically I don't connect to. So this deck is very Wiccan-y. Here's the elemental fire. And I guess that was fine when I got the deck, because my practice was still very Wicca heavy. Even though I haven't been, and see, some of the, because this is 18, which is the moon, I think. but a lot of the major arcana cards are labeled by the sabbats or something like that. And so yeah, it's got a very Wiccan energy to it, and I do celebrate the sabbats. See, here's Maiden of Water. Yeah, so there's a lot about this deck that I like, but there's the very, very Wiccan nature, and I actually really like this deck. This card. This is like the Holly and Oak King, which is a very Wiccan thing. I do very much like a lot of this deck. It's just, it's too Wiccan for me now, and because of that, I just don't connect with it anymore. I still keep it. And that's something I'm going to discuss with the actual next deck, that the deck that I'm actually angry at, because it's not so much that I'm angry at this deck as it is that I don't connect with it anymore. Yeah. But I'm going to keep it, and I'm going to kind of explain that in my next one. So here is where I think I'm going to be a little controversial. This is not a deck that I see people talk about very often. Actually, let me put the whole thing. So this, oh gosh, I'm just throwing it across I must be really angry at it because I'm just throwing it across the room. This is the Fairy Wicca Tarot, and it came in this box with the book next to it, and then the deck here in like a tuck box, or no, it's a pull out. It goes like this. So here's the thing. I want to like this deck. Obviously, like I said with the previous one, Wicca is not part of my practice anymore. I'm not saying I don't have some Wicca elements to my practice, because I do. But this deck makes me angry. And this deck makes me angry because it's a theme that I really want to like, and I really want decks that follow this theme. But this deck, I find Fairy Wicca, the actual practice, by Kisma Stepanich. I apologize if I'm not saying that correctly. I find this very culturally appropriative. The whole Wicca, Fairy Wicca practice, because it was very heavily based on Irish mythology, which I love, and I love that there's Irish words used in this deck. Though I wish the whole thing was Irish, instead of 5 of Ishka, I wish the whole thing was Irish. And here's the thing: it's got all sorts of imagery from Irish mythology, so I want to love this deck because my path now is very much Irish paganism, and I won't say Reconstructionist because not really. It is modern, but it is modern, but it's taking from it's. I'm trying to explain this correctly, but it's looking to the lore to kind of influence how I practice today, if that makes sense. And because of that, I want to really, really like this deck. I really do. I want to like this deck. And I keep this deck for a few reasons. One, I have learned that I am not the kind of person that gets rid of decks. So that has been a learning experience for me. I'm just, you're not going to see a video of me where I anti-haul something. And I don't know. It's just, maybe I have a bit of hoarding tendencies. I don't know. And I say that respectfully. But maybe I have those sorts of tendencies or something, but I can't seem to sell things that I have, or I can get rid of things. Like I'm not a hoarder in the clinical sense, I guess. And I can easily get rid of things. But when it comes to stuff like this, I find that I don't get rid of it. I have moved on some decks to my kids. Like there was a one of the old Doreen Virtue Terry Fairy Oracle. I cannot speak this morning. Fairy Oracle deck that I don't like at all, and I passed on to my daughters. And then there's another deck that I have that's oh, it was the Aquarian Tarot that I kind of hate it. I hate that deck. So, but again, I'm not going to sell it. But I did pass it on to my oldest child. And I also gave her the Wheel of the Year Tarot, which I like. I actually like that one, but I got that one for her. But I'm not going to sell a deck. I'm just not. And I'm not going to give a deck away. And even this deck, which I kind of hate this deck because I'm angry at it, and I find the whole premise behind fairy Wicca, there's nothing wrong with a fairy practice, there's nothing wrong with Wicca, it's just this person's specific brand of this is what I find to be culturally appropriative. And I think part of what makes me dislike this deck is because the pronunciations are wrong. I feel like this person went just kind of slapped together their fairy Wicca practice, and I am being very harsh right now, I know. And the pronunciation guide is all wrong. That's frustrating to me. And it's frustrating to me that like, why not just put this in Irish instead of having a mix of Irish and English? And so that's what I want. And here's Nisha. So I love that all these there's a lot of stuff in here that's from Irish mythology, and I would love a deck that really taps into that really taps into Irish mythology. And here they use the English spelling of Maeve instead of using an Irish spelling, which I would have preferred. And I don't know, I find this deck frustrating. One, because I have issues with the whole fairy Wicca path. Nothing wrong with fairy path. I incorporate a lot of fairy paganism into my Irish paganism for sure, and nothing wrong with Wicca. I still have very Wiccan elements in my path, so there's nothing wrong with fairy. There's nothing wrong with Wicca. I have a lot of issues with fairy Wicca specifically, the path created by this author, and I don't think it's gained much ground. Fairy Wicca, because I think she only had like 2 books, and they're out of print. This deck is out of print. That's another reason why I won't give it up, is because there's a psychological thing for me here of it's out of print, so I don't want to get rid of it. You know what I mean? And that's my own thing. But yeah, there's a lot that I want to like with this deck, but I don't like it because of this person's brand of fairy Wicca, or this particular brand of paganism that I find to be very culturally appropriative, and slapped together. Oh, here's my name, Neve. So yeah, so I keep this deck too because I pull it out sometimes hoping that I will still get something out of this, and it just makes me angry. I pull it out and it makes me angry. Plus the art isn't super great. I could get over that. I really could. I could get over the art, but I just have issues with this whole concept. And yeah, so there we go. That is my Wrath deck, and I don't know if there's practitioners of this particular brand of Wicca out there, and I really don't mean to offend anyone, but I've got issues with this deck. And yeah, all right, so let me just put this away. All right, so the next one is Envy, a deck you wanted because other people have it. Again, I have 2 decks here. The first one, less so. This is the bag that I made for it. And you can also tell I didn't make a bag for the Fairy Wicca deck. So So that says something too. I don't think I ever will make a bag for it. And in fact, I have it kind of hidden away, the deck. It's not displayed with my other decks. That's how much I don't like that deck. But also how I know that I'm just not going to get rid of decks. And so because of that, I'm a lot more careful about what I bring in. Oh, God, this is hard to get out because I put the book in here with it. And I didn't quite make the bag big enough for the book as well. But this is the Light Seers Tarot. This is in this category because I got this partially because it was extremely popular and I was interested. And I also got it because the artwork is stunning. I mean, the artwork is just amazing. So this could have also been under the lust category, that I got this just because it was pretty. And it's still true. But I also find that this is a really great deck for clients. Especially clients that need sort of a softer message, if that makes sense. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. We've all seen this. But in general, I kind of got this deck because it was very, very popular. And that is the case for the next one in this same category. And this one is more so about this because I've actually come to be bonded with this deck. And beyond just getting it because it's pretty and a lot of people had it. But the actual deck that I feel fits this category more is the Wild Unknown Tarot. And I do not have a bag for this. Kind of says something. But, okay. I could also potentially put this deck in the decks I'm mad at sort of thing. And I'm not mad at this deck. I'm really not. It's just that with as much hype as this deck had, I expected more. And I do like it. And I understand the purpose of it. There's a lot to this that I like. And I really like the card size and the quality. Very happy with that. I can shuffle this deck, I think. I'm a few cards short here because I've already pulled those out, but I don't pull this deck out a lot. And I think there's, yeah, it's okay. I couldn't bridge there, but, oh, I got a little bit of an issue here with one of my cards. Oh, well, so, I don't know, I want to really like this deck. I just haven't become bonded with it. I've had it for like years. And I got this deck when around the time it came out, and it had a huge amount of hype behind it. And that's why I got it, because of the hype, for sure. And it's fine. It is. It's fine. It's a fine deck. There's something about it that is a disconnect for me. And I don't know if it's the artwork, but I have the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit Oracle, and I love that deck. And it's the same kind of artwork, so I guess it's not that. But there's something about this deck that I'm just not connecting with. Kind of like this, a different interpretation of the Three Swords there. That's cool. The artwork is beautiful. Like, don't get me wrong. I do like the artwork. But there is one issue that I have that I don't think I can look past. And this was not something that I realized before, but it was, I'm in a kind of a tarot shitposting group, and this card gets made fun of a lot, and I can't unsee this now, and that is the Sun card. So, yeah, that... It kind of looks like something inappropriate. And I didn't realize that before, and now I can't unsee it. So anytime this card is going to come up in a reading, which I don't have, I don't use this deck very often for readings, but if this card comes up, I'm just going to be like, I'm just going to giggle. I don't know that I'll be able to take it seriously. But yeah, so I got this deck because it was popular. And I got it around the time that this deck came out. Because don't get me wrong, this deck was a game changer in a lot of ways for the tarot community. It really took it took the tarot community by storm, I think, and has kind of become one of those classic decks now. I don't really connect with it, but maybe someday I will. I hold out hope that I will, but every time the sun card comes up, it's gonna make me laugh now, and I can't unsee it. All right, so let me move some of these out of the way here. All right, so the next category is Lust, a deck you like for aesthetic reasons. And this was just, you can tell by the background here that it's going to be the Untamed Mystery Tarot, and this is the Ice edition. So this was a Kickstarter, and I've mentioned it in some previous videos. I also did a recent walkthrough of this deck, so go check that out. And this is a gorgeous deck, and this is the Kickstarter. I just got this in last month, and these cards are just like, check that out. I mean, wow. Every time I look at this this deck and all that it shows, it is a stunning deck, and I 100% back this Kickstarter simply because it's a beautiful deck, because I just wanted a pretty aesthetically pleasing deck that was just it's not in order, just the Fool happened to be at the top here, but I just wanted something gorgeous, something that really caught the eye, that looked luxurious, and that is the reason I backed this deck. I didn't back it because I thought there was any sort of depth to it or something like that. I just backed it because it was pretty. I wanted something pretty and sparkly, and yeah. So yeah, and I've recently shared lots of images of this deck, but I will say, even though I got this deck because of this aesthetic reasons, I've been very surprised by the book. I haven't fully read through the book, but like the Fool card, I mentioned this in the last one too. Like each entry has a full like 2, 3, even 4 pages. And there is a bit, and it's actually quite detailed, and there's a depth to it that I was not expecting. So I was very pleasantly surprised by this. So like, and I don't know if every card does this, but for the Fool here, because there's no spreads in this deck, or in this book, excuse me, but the Fool here, it says, to figure out how to unlock the energy of a Fool, do a reading based on the design of this card. Pull cards for every skull to see which fears are holding you back, and then pull a card for every eye to see how others perceive you in the situation. Most importantly, pull a card for the seal, in the seal here, to get an idea of where it wants to go. So yeah, I actually really love that, and I was very surprised by this book. I'm not saying it's going to be like a masterpiece of a deck. It's not going to be like, I don't know, a soul deck, or not that I think I really agree with that or believe in that, but like it's not going to be like my favorite deck. But I was pleasantly surprised by this. Yeah. So anyway, that was my Lust deck, a deck that I got just because it was pretty. However, it did surprise me with the depth that it had. All right, so the next deck, let me get this book out of the way. The next one is Gluttony, a deck you didn't need but purchased anyway. And this was kind of easy for me because this is brand new to my collection, and that is the Grimalkin Tarot, Grimalkin's Curious Cats. And I don't have a bag for this yet. That's because I just got it. And I did shuffle it. So I can shuffle it now. Whereas my last video, it was still in order. So here's a book for it. And this was I got this deck. This was not on, because I have a list right now of decks that I am planning on getting this year, and I've spaced it out through the year, with some openings for, minds might change later on, things like that. But I got this deck simply because there was a huge sale on MJ Cullinane's site where you could get both the Grimalkin's Curious Cats Tarot and Guardian of the Night Tarot for the price of just the Grimalkin. And these were the independent versions that were on her website. So if that sale is still going, go check out her website. I don't know if it's finished yet. It was basically a until supplies last sort of secret sale that has not been advertised, so I'm advertising it for her. But not that my videos get a lot of views, but so yeah, if that deal is still going on, go check out her website, because you might be able to get Grimalkin's and Guardian of the Night, her independent versions from her site, for just the price of the Grimalkin. So I think it was like $44. Can't remember if there was a sale or if there was shipping. But yeah, anyway, so I was not planning on getting this deck. I was interested in it, thinking maybe someday I'll get the Grimalkins. But I was interested, but it was not on my list, and I really was not planning on getting it. So this was a deck that I didn't need. I wasn't planning on purchasing it, but I purchased it anyway. And I purchased it because there was a huge sale, and I kind of couldn't let that go. I couldn't get past it, so I was like, I kind of need to jump on this. So I got the Grimalkin Curious Cats and Guardian of the Night, and the reason why Guardian of the Night is not in this category is because I actually did plan on eventually getting that one, and possibly this year even, because it did come out on mass market. Yeah. But anyway, so I'm not flipping through these yet because I wanted to show some of the cards. I'm looking, right before this video started, I've been looking through my fabric and looking at embroidery designs to figure out what bag I'm going to make for this deck. And I'm really loving the Pentacles suit of this deck. I really, Eight of Pentacles is my favorite card in general in tarot. But I also really love the Eight of Pentacles in this particular deck. I love the colors. The cat is beautiful. Yeah, I really like this Eight of Pentacles. So these are like primary inspiration that I'm looking to for a bag that I'm going to create. As this Two of Pentacles, I really like the poppies. I found an embroidery that does have poppies and a cat, but it's got a moon behind it, and I really wish it had a sun, because I'm really liking this sun energy, and I'm starting to feel like this is going to be a very nice summer deck for me. Not that I really read seasonally, but the deck feels very summery to me, which I wish the backs kind of reflect that, because the backs feel very wintry even. Yeah, kind of wintry. But the fronts, I mean, there's some gray cards here and there, but in general, I get a very summer vibe from this deck. And so, yeah, and I also pulled out the one with the cats and the knitting yarn, things like that, because there was an embroidery I saw that had it had the laurel of the Six of Wands, but it had a cat knitting, and I quite liked that embroidery, and I'm considering using it on this. But yeah, and then this also comes with 2 extra cards, the Unity and Grimalkin. So there we go. So I will keep you guys apprised on what bag I end up choosing with this. But I will say, because I was messing around with this deck, and I really like the thinness. I mean, it's not super thin, but it's not super thick either, because it's actually a lot easier for me to shuffle. And I can shuffle it long ways like this, like that. But I've actually found I have an easier time shuffling this deck sideways, which I've done before with decks, especially big decks, and it's always worked okay. But this deck, I can actually shuffle pretty easily sideways, and it goes smoothly. I can't bridge it, but I've done this a few times, and I think I'm probably going to shuffle this, and probably Guardian of the Night too, because it's the same size and same cardstock. Yeah, it goes a lot smoother that way. So think this is a deck and also Guardian of the Night that I'll be shuffling sideways. Anyway, so that is my Gluttony deck, because I really did not need this deck. I got it because it was on sale. and I do like it. I do really like it. It's just that I was not planning on getting this deck at all until that sale came around. So, whoop. They are slippery though. They just slip around on me. All right, so the final deck, and I'm sure you know what this is because I showed it earlier. This is the Sloth deck, a deck you use when you feel lazy. And that is this one, which I shared earlier and has been in other videos. And this is the Book of Shadows So Below deck. So here we go. Here, I'm going to pull out the other one too. Because while I don't use this deck anymore, I love the bag matching I did with these. I hope I'm in frame, but yeah, the bag matching I did really turned out nicely with these. Yeah, I love it. Anyway, and I didn't use the same embroidery that I used here, and that's just because I happen to have a patch that looked like this. So that's why there's a patch on this one, and this one I actually embroidered. So that's an embroidery that I put on there, and this is a patch. So yeah, so they're slightly different. But anyway, so I like this deck a lot more than the As Above deck. And that's because the cards in this deck, while there are a couple cards that kind of hint at Wicca, it's a very general modern day pagan deck. And yeah, and the reason it's my Sloth deck is because it's a total sharpshooter for me. I can pull this deck out, and because the imagery is so everyday, I can immediately understand what it's telling me. And it's a sharpshooter for me, and because of that, it's my Sloth deck. It's if I just want an answer for everyday circumstances, things that are going on in my life right now, I just want to pull a few cards. This is definitely the deck that I go to, and I also like it that it's not. It's totally modern day, completely in the everyday world, but there is a magical sort of element to it. And so it's a kind of a modern day witch. Well, I won't say modern witch because that's an actual deck, but it's what the modern witch or modern pagan that, you know, feels very modern pagan to me. I don't know if it's, there we go. Yeah, because these are the kinds of things we'll see. And this is the one card that says, the little book down here says Wicca. I'm not sure if it's focusing or not. There we go. So there is an element of that here, but it's not as like blatant as these As Above deck. And really, I feel like any pagan could use this deck, and people who aren't pagan or into witchcraft could even use this deck because it's very modern day, and the messages in this deck are very clear. I don't have to think long and hard about what this is telling me. I can tell that there's an argument going on, and then I can look at, you know, it's 5 of Wands. Yeah, that sort of competition, you know, I don't want to say aggressiveness because I feel like that's more of the 5 of Swords, but there's a conflict going on here. But there's still a level of respect going on. Like, these are co-workers here, and just trying to focus. There we go. So there's these are co-workers and stuff, but it's, you know, there's a level of respect going on, but there's still this animosity and this arguing and conflict. So yeah, like it's a very easy deck for me to understand what's going on. I mean, there's a couple cards that are a little bit not sure what's going on, but I think this deck, I really like this Judgment card. I think this deck just does a good job at plainly stating, you know, like, this is one of my favorite cards, and I talk about it every time I mention this deck in this in my channel, but this looks like a modern tower moment. Like, any one of us could have experienced something like this, and I've experienced something like this, and I love the colors in it that really exemplify the feelings going on. But here's a woman who is She is on the phone and she's clearly upset and angry, and then that's shown with all her being in all red with the blue around her and the cup falling over. That she just got some devastating news on the phone, and that is a true like modern day tower moment. And I just like that with this deck. So yeah, that is my sloth deck. All right, so let me go, let me get all the stuff out here so I can get a screenshot and we can see what we got. Okay, I think I got it all in place here. All right, so for Pride, it's a deck you purchase for flexing. That is the Seed and Sickles limited edition. For Greed, a deck you don't share with anyone, I chose the Crow Tarot, which I only use with communicating with the Morrigan. For Wrath, I chose two decks. This is the Book of Shadows as above, and my actual true Wrath is the Fairy Wicca Tarot. That was a deck you're angry at. Envy, a deck you wanted because other people have it. I put Light Seers and the Wild Unknown Tarot, though I think it's more this one than this one, but there you go. Lust, a deck you like for aesthetic reasons. That is the Untamed Mystery Tarot, the Ice Edition. And Gluttony, a deck you didn't need but purchased anyway, is my Grimalkin's Curious Cats Tarot. And finally, Sloth, a deck you use when you feel lazy. That is my Book of Shadows So Below deck. All right, thank you so much for watching, everyone. I think the next one, I might do that, the opposite one to this, the Heavenly Virtues one, the 7 decks for Heavenly Virtues. I don't know, we'll see. All right, thank you so much for watching, everyone. I will see you next time. Bye.